Do you come to this as a pension problem or as a budget problem? And I'm sort of going off something David said. Is this something where you're looking at a whole budget and you're saying, we ought to save money in a budget? This has been a big argument in Houston, for example. We ought to save money in a budget, and pensions is a way to save money in the budget. Or do you come at this as really just a standalone pension problem, and the budget stuff's just an ancillary benefit?
Both. So on the budget stuff, that's a near-term problem. Right. As far as the fiscal problems, those are long-term and developing. Now, as we've seen in Houston, rising pension obligations can create an environment that challenges the city budget. Right now, if you look at the general revenue fund portion of the budget, pension obligations constitute about a 7 to 10% ding. And what Moody's has said in their latest debt downgrade is that that's too much. That's too much in terms of fixed cost. And so the immediate challenge is, how do we get those problems resolved? Now, the long-term problem is that our unfunded liabilities are just growing through the roof. We have unfunded liabilities that are at $57.5 billion as of right now. That's an increase of about $4.3 billion from 1 year prior. And by the way, in about 5 fiscal years ago, unfunded liabilities were only in the 30s billions. And so, you can see that there's significant growth in this, in the accumulation of liabilities. And part of the problem is that we're using fuzzy math to apply to a lot of these systems. And what I mean is that the assumed rate of return is way, way too high. A lot of plans use about an 8% assumed rate of return. I think we all know that in today's market, that's way too high. Most private plans run between 4 and 5%. And so by using this fuzzy math, though, we're actually able to understate the amount of unfunded liabilities. And so I actually think the fiscal problems are much greater than what is shown.
Max, you guys have disagreed with some of the numbers about unfunded liabilities and about who this falls on. I'll let you respond how you were going to, but I want to ask you about that.
Let me go back first to your question about the budget.
Sure.
And it's interesting, you mentioned the city of Houston. I came to work for the city of Houston in 1990 as a deputy in the finance department. Mm-hmm. And it was right around 91 or so, or 92. My boss, who was the finance director, went to the Houston Municipal Pension Fund. And he was trying to balance the budget. And at that time, the city was contributing what was actually required in all 3 of the plans. And he was trying to balance the budget, and he was short a couple $1 million. And he asked if he could just, reduce the contribution by just that couple million, and he'd make it up the next year. And he had a good relationship with him, and they trusted him, and they didn't have to, and they did, and they went along with it. And then he came back the next year, and he asked if he can push it off to the following year, and they went along the second year.
I'm hearing rumbles out here.
And then there was a mayoral change, and the new mayor came in and said, what's this? And from that point on, it just got worse and worse and worse. So to answer your question, it started out as a budget problem. Then there became some pension issues later on, but it became initially a budget problem. And so now, and I think the heartburn there is, as you look back, and they're saying, well, yeah, maybe we made a mistake, and it shouldn't have been done that way, and those guys aren't here anymore, they were elected, and those are bad guys that shouldn't have done it. But, we got to fix this today, and therefore you got to get back, less benefit. And it's so hard to take. It's hard to sell that.
Mm-hmm.